Previously on Love at First Shot, we learned how a bullet is born, how to know which ammo to choose for your firearm, and why the .22 is the perfect round for new shooters. And now it's finally time to try out some of those rounds and see what they can do. I'm Natalie Foster, and this is Love at First Shot, sponsored by Smith Wesson. Now we're back in Texas with Melanie Sturgis, who is an NRA certified instructor and the owner of Texas on Target. And she has been recommended as the Ammo Pro. Now, when you are dealing with a first-timer, somebody who needs to know about ammo, where would you start?
I tell you, how many pairs of black shoes do you have in your closet?
Oh, that is not a fair question to ask me.
Well, and no married women should have to answer that. You've got more than one pair because you use them for a different thing. Same thing with our ammo and same thing with our gun. For a new shooter, we want to start with a .22 round because it's light, there's no recoil, and it's just a simple, easy shooting round.
Okay.
The thing about a .22 round is the primer, the compound that actually makes it goes bang, is in the rim of the cartridge case. That's why they call it rimfire.
Rimfire, okay, as opposed to
a centerfire.
Centerfire, okay.
Or we have a primer in the center, but got a little gunpowder, got some air, and then your bullet is actually seated in there down to about right there. This whole item right here is the cartridge. It's the ammunition. The bullet is the piece that sits on the top.
Gotcha. So the cartridge is the component that carries everything else, including the primer, the gunpowder, or whatever else is in there, right?
Absolutely. Without the cartridge case, there's no party at all.
This is a .22 magazine, right? Now, this differs from a lot of other magazines because it has a lever like this, right?
There's actually a little button here on the side. As I push this button down, it's going to depress that spring, and I simply just take a .22 round. I put the rim in there, and I just drop it. And it just slides right in. Okay. When I'm ready to load the next round, I reach and I pull that knob down.
And I drop it in like that.
Just right like that.
We've got the important points about .22 ammo down, but before we shoot, Melanie is gonna go over those ever-important safety rules. Now, you have a protocol that you like to run through first, so let's do that.
Eyes and ears always. It doesn't matter even if you're just watching, you still have to have eyes and ears. When I pass a gun to you, it will have no magazine in it and the bolt will be locked back.
Okay.
And we'll follow our 3 safety rules. Muzzle downrange, always. Always keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot, and always load your gun only when you're ready to shoot.
Okay, well, I think we should get to it.
Natalie, you did a good job.
Thank you.
This was from our .22 pistol.
Right.
That's the size of the round compared to the hole that's there. And if you actually take it, it just fits right in. Just perfect, nice and snug.
Okay.
Let's pop on down to this one. This one was the .22 AR platform you were shooting.
Right. Now, keep in mind that the .22 for the handgun is exactly the same round that you would use for the .22 AR or modern sporting rifle. And while the .22 is light, easy, and fun to shoot, you may find that you want to step things up a bit. And for that, we look to the 9mm. It's important to keep in mind that there are lots of different rounds out there, and we're touching on kind of the most popular out there. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And 9mm that you've got up here next is a very common cartridge. It's used a lot in shooting games. It's used a lot for plinking. It's used a lot for even home defense. This cartridge is 9mm. It differs from the other one because it has the primer in the center. It's a center fire cartridge. As you pull the trigger, the firing pin goes forward and smacks that primer, which is what creates the boom. We have a little bit of gunpowder, a little bit of air, and there our bullet sits on top of that, our actual projectile.
Right.
So it's actually lead underneath with a little copper coating on top of it, a copper jacket.
And this one is called a full metal jacket, is that right?
Full metal jacket because it has the copper coating on the top. Next, on our 9mm ammo, we're stepping up just a little bit. We talked about our shoes.
Oh, yes.
Here's where our shoes come in. If you're going to be walking all day, you're going to put your black loafers on, your flats, aren't you?
Well, it depends, but yes.
Unless you have to look real pretty that day.
Yeah, unless I have to look fabulous, then yes, I'm probably wearing comfortable shoes.
And if you're going on a job interview, you're going to wear some business pumps,
some high heels, right?
So on this one here, the bullet is the only thing that differs. And if you can look on the end of this one, that one actually is has a hole in the center and it has a little stem sticking through. This would be more of a defensive kind of round because what happens is when this bullet impacts something, that little stem hits, the little slices along the bullet open up and it petals open like that, and it lets it go through.
That's considered a hollow point, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's a hollow point because the point is hollow, correct?
Absolutely.
Now, people think that the hollow point is the evil round, but in reality, they simply function differently. Is that right?
If you're in a home situation where you need to defend yourself, if you use something like a full metal jacket, because a 9mm is a fast, light bullet, it's probably going to go through 1 or 2 walls or even more walls. A hollow point is designed when it hits,
It stops.
it opens up, it
Right.
mushrooms out, which slows it down.
Okay, so let's talk about this one. I know it's a little trickier because it doesn't typically have the button on the side, correct?
It doesn't have the button on the side, and that's why they call it thumb busting. Because you just keep putting more and more in, and you bust your thumb time and time again.
That sounds super fun.
Now, with that spring in there, I press down on it and just push it in. That was not as much fun as loading that 22.
Yeah,
Did you notice?
I did notice, and here's the thing. I pay a lot for my manicures, so I like to maintain them. I like this little device that we happen to have, oh so conveniently, that really spares your manicure.
You just basically set it on a flat surface, put this over the top, squeeze it, push down, that depresses that spring magazine, drop it in, and open it up. And wasn't that easy?
I mean, they're still fine.
It's like working maracas, I'm telling you, it's easy. This is an M&P 9mm shield. Safety's on, I'm handling it to you.
Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
This was from our 9mm.
Right.
Here's our 9mm compared against the size of the hole. Notice, again, the nose of the bullet just snugs right up in there.
Yep, it certainly does. The 9mm is a great handgun caliber that many people find to be just the right size for their comfort level. So what would be a similarly comfortable yet effective round for a rifle? Let's see what Melanie thinks. I have an extremely common round here, which of course is the .223.
This one right here is a center fire. We have our powder, air gap, and then our bullet actually goes down to about right there in this thing. This also, can you see a little tiny hole in the center?
I can.
This is also a hollow point.
Okay.
This one here, light, easily shooting round, no recoil, very little noise. This is a good round after I've started someone on a 22 with the rifle to move them up to this .223 round right here.
Okay, so there's that magazine for you, and then the rounds.
Okay.
So now this, it's a little different from the others, right?
It is just a little bit different. You see how we've got a little thing sticking up right there, the plate of that magazine?
I sure do.
I just put this on top, just right dead in the middle.
Okay.
Push it down. Did you hear a click?
Oh man, that's so much easier.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah.
And these will stagger from side to side as you load it up.
Okay.
This other one here, I'm also just putting it right on top.
Okay.
And it's in.
So you don't necessarily need a Lula for this particular type of magazine, although they do make them. So if you want them, they're available. They're totally out there for you.
Bolt open, no magazine, safety on.
Okay, thank you.
And now, this one may surprise you a little bit. Here's the .223 round you shot.
Which looks a lot bigger than the 22, which is next to
It
it.
is significantly larger.
Yep.
And again, if we stick the nose of the bullet in, look at that.
Yeah, so it's a lot smaller than you would think it is. It's actually comparable to the 22,
Only slightly larger.
which explains the reduced recoil in a 223. So we know what would serve as a good starter caliber for the first 2 gun categories, but what about the last? What would be a good, comfortable, yet effective round for a newbie in the shotgun category? We've got the 22, the 9mm, the 223. Let's talk about the 20 gauge here.
20 gauge is a common gauge that new shooters start out on.
But the cartridge looks totally different.
Yes. What color is this?
Yellow.
It is absolutely sunshine yellow. It's yellow for a safety reason because 20 and 12 gauges are very commonly shot, and you got to use the right ammo in the right gun. So we have our primer, our powder, we have a little bit of air gap, and then we have a plastic wad sitting in there, which is actually a cup. And inside that cup are a lot of little lead shot. So this is kind of what it looks like on the inside. You got a whole bunch of those little rascals rolling around
So
in
they're
there.
really just BBs, is what I'm seeing, little balls.
The proper way for me to hand you this gun is to have the ejection port open like that. Okay. The safety's on and my finger's out of the trigger.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Now that one definitely has more recoil than the others.
You did a very good job, by the way.
Thank you.
This is different than all the other holes. Instead of just having one projectile, you can see the shot that was in there. It's spread all out, mostly in the center because we were shooting a close distance on this one, so it didn't fan out a lot.
Well, I think we've gotten a good idea of what all these rounds are used for and what they can do upon impact. And I'm not saying that shooting sheetrock isn't fun, but I think, Melanie, we might be able to come up with 1 or 2 more things to shoot. What do you say?
That sounds like a plan.
I say let's do it. Okay, here we go.
Ah! Oh, that beats housework.
It does beat housework. Okay, here we go.
Yoo-hoo!
And lastly,
Woo!
there is just not a lot that's that much fun.
That's the most fun I've had making that big a mess in a long time.
Fire. That was awesome. Okay, I've got one last thing I think we should shoot.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, come here. Okay, so I've always heard that when you shoot a watermelon with a shotgun, it will explode. And I was thinking maybe it would be a good experiment. What do you think?
Well, it's hot.
It is hot.
That's cold.
This is cold.
So why don't we eat that instead?
That's genius.
Let's roll.
Let's do it. Cheers. Melanie, I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Back at you, Natalie.
Well, that's what I call a pretty perfect day. Thanks to Melanie Sturgis for the wonderful instruction. And now let's take a look at our Cabela's checklist. Now, lots of ladies out there, including me, like to take a relaxing hour every so often to get a nice manicure, and we don't want it ruined. And even if you're not the type to get a manicure, those mags can do a number on your hands. That's where the Lula comes in. This genius little device makes your life a lot easier by making loading your mags quick and easy. And it has the added bonus of keeping your manicurist happy. Now, we've loved all your questions, feedback, and input online, so keep it coming. Check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram feeds for more polls and even some behind-the-scenes photos. We'll see you next time on Love at First Shot, sponsored by Smith Wesson.